All right. So, um, you might remember, for those who are fans of BBC and specifically Match of the Day, wasn't that long ago Gary Lineker was suspended for a tweet he made. And I mean, I didn't see anything wrong with the tweet. I mean, maybe not the fact that he tweeted it. I don't know about the substance of it, but I don't live in England, so I'm not going to comment on the substance. But anyway, here is an exclusive, and this is from, let's see, 3 days ago, June 27th. So BBC Director General Tim Davie was in contact with a senior government official on the day he suspended Gary Lineker, raising questions about whether he was pressured to punish the presenter for breaking impartiality rules. And again, don't know what those impartiality rules were. I mean, not familiar with British law. Documents obtained by Deadline reveal that Davie was in dialogue with Polly Payne, Director General of the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, or DCMS, on March 10th. Emails between the BBC and the DCMS show that Payne and Davie's conversations were unscheduled. The papers cast fresh light on the biggest crisis of Davie's tenure after he suspended Match of the Day host Lineker for tweeting that government asylum policy had echoes of Nazi Germany. Lineker was swiftly reinstated 3 days later following a weekend of chaos in which his colleagues effectively went on strike and BBC sports coverage fell off the air. And by that I mean nobody came to work. They were like, "You're suspending him? Yeah, we're not working. You can fuck right off." The revelation that Davie spoke to the DCMS has raised eyebrows among BBC staff, lawmakers, and Lineker's allies, one of whom described evidence of the conversations as explosive. The corporation's proximity to government has been under scrutiny following Richard Sharp's resignation as chairman in April over a Boris Johnson loan scandal. Actually, wasn't he the one who was appointed by Boris? Not sure. It comes as the BBC prepares to publish an independent review of its social media rules for freelance stars led by former ITN chief executive John Hardy. Deadline understands that ahead of publication, the BBC has attempted to establish whether Lineker will accept and abide by Hardy's conclusions, despite the fact that they are yet to be finalized. On the day Lineker was stood down, an assistant to DCMS official Payne emailed Davie's office at 11:36 a.m. to organize a call for later that day, according to a Freedom of Information Act disclosure. The assistant explained that Polly has let us know that she and Tim have agreed to arrange a chat today, suggesting that the Directors General had corresponded that morning about an impromptu call. Davie's office was initially uncertain, partly because a call with Payne was already scheduled for the following week, and partly because the BBC chief had flown to Washington, D.C. a day earlier. They eventually agreed that Payne would call Davie at 5:30 p.m. UK time, less than an hour after the BBC announced that Lineker would step back from his presenting duties. Wait, if it was less than an hour later, that doesn't jibe anymore with the government pressured him, but okay. Earlier in the day, Lineker's agent John Holmes was summoned to the BBC's London headquarters at 2:30 p.m. for talks about the presenter's position. The BBC wanted Lineker to apologize, but he refused. An announcement was made about the presenter's suspension soon after 4:30 p.m., and almost immediately Lineker's colleagues started stepping back in solidarity. After the decision to suspend Lineker backfired, two sources said Holmes told Davie that employees were mutinous because they believed he had cowed to pressure from the government and conservative newspaper The Daily Mail. In a BBC interview at the height of the crisis, Davey said it was absolutely not the case that he was influenced by ministers and conservative press in taking action against Lineker. A BBC insider said Davey's decision to punish Lineker blindsided Oh my God. A BBC insider said Davies' decision to punish Lineker blindsided senior figures at the corporation, but they said it was unlikely that he was influenced by the government. This person acknowledged, however, that the timing of the exchanges with the DCMS were not a good look for a leader who is fanatical about impartiality. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to accuse one of your personalities on a very popular program that they broke impartiality rules when he's literally kowtowing to the government. Yeah. The DCMS said it did not put pressure on the BBC to punish Lineker, but neither side denied that Davey and Payne discussed the former England footballer during their conversations on March 10th. I'm sorry. They're the regulators, right? They oversee people like the BBC. So, isn't that by the very fact that they're discussing this? Don't they have the power just by who they are to influence someone? I mean, we do that in everyday life. Look at the Me Too movement. This idea that a boss and an underling can never have a consensual relationship because the underling could always feel like they have to do this. So, isn't this sort of the same thing? Anyway, a DCMS spokesman said, the BBC is operationally and editorially independent from the government, and we have no say on its day-to-day decisions or staffing matters. At no time have we sought to influence the BBC's decision on this matter. Then why did you discuss it if this had nothing to do with you? The BBC said there are meetings and discussions between ministers and government officials on a regular basis, and we don't offer a commentary on those meetings. John Nicholson, a Scottish National Party MP who sits on Parliament's influential Culture, Media and Sports Committee, called on both parties to disclose the nature of their conversations. It's intriguing to learn that the Director General had unscheduled conversations with the DCMS on the day Gary Lineker was suspended, he said. BBC management clearly handled the Lineker suspension controversy very badly. I know BBC staff are concerned about government interference. Perhaps Mr. Davey might shed some light on whether he discussed Gary Lineker with the DCMS that day. Right, I mean, right now the optics look bad. So, if this had nothing to do, if it was just strictly a coincidence, then you should have no problem saying it. I mean, you don't have to go into deep detail. Just tell us the subject. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, right now, it's looking shady. So, come up with a story at this point. Unless you're Trump and you record everything, nobody will be the wiser. So make something up if it turns out, oh shit, we're screwed. Figure out a way to make something up. Granted, that might not end well, but it's right now not any worse than, people just speculating as to, okay, you were talking to the government and then suddenly this beloved figure was suspended. The papers obtained by Deadline also reveal that Sharp, the outgoing BBC chairman, met with Foreign Secretary James Cleverly the day before Lineker was punished. The Foreign and Commonwealth Office said the meeting was arranged to discuss the BBC World Service, and at no point did Lineker come up in conversation. See? That's all you have to say. Just do what this conversation was. Just the optics right now suck. So why not just say this is what we talked about instead of, oh, we don't disclose what we discussed. Well, maybe you should in this case because people are suspicious. Rightly or wrongly, they're suspicious that there was some undue influence. So why not put that puppy to rest by saying either way? Unless they realize that they were talking about sacking Gary Lineker, or at least just suspending him, and they just don't want to say anything, or they just don't have a way of coming up with a suitable cover story. No, I am not condoning lying, but at this point, you're not helping your case anyway, so I don't think lying would be any worse at this point. Right. Both Cleverly and Lucy Fraser, the culture secretary, made their feelings known about the Lineker affair before he was benched. Cleverly told LBC that Lineker's tweet was deeply offensive and suggested he read his history books. Speaking in the House of Commons on March 9th, Fraser said the comparison to Nazi Germany was disappointing and inappropriate. Let me see. I don't know. I don't remember when this was said. If this was in relation to wanting to send migrants to Rwanda? Because if that's the case, then no, that's not Nazi Germany. I mean, they did initially want to send Jews away until it was discovered that that wasn't going to work. But that was an idea they were contemplating. So maybe that's what he was comparing the two. I really don't remember what asylum clusterfuck was happening in England on March 10th. So I'm just speculating because I know that for a while the sending migrants to Rwanda was a suggestion. So Lineker was reinstated just 3 days after his suspension after Davy held a flurry of meetings with the presenter's agent on March 12th. He did not apologize for his tweet, which was a response to the government's divisive stop the boats immigration policy. He described the policy as immeasurably cruel and accused the government of deploying language that is not dissimilar to that used by Germany in the 30s. Okay, so I was wrong. It's just simply stopping the migrant boats. Okay. Not that familiar with the conversation. It's been a while, so I'm not going to comment. Lineker, who is paid £1.35 million or $1.7 million a year by the BBC, told The Rest is Politics leading podcast that he thought he had a special agreement in which he could tweet about the refugee crisis and climate change. I put this in that category, he said. All my argument here was, let's have some empathy towards these poor people that are forced to flee persecution and war. If that was your only intention, maybe not comparing it to Nazi Germany. I mean, that's a very divisive topic. It's one of those things that I can't remember what the fallacy is called, but, basically you lose the argument. The first person loses the argument that, mentions Hitler. Yeah, maybe this wasn't a good idea to compare to Nazi Germany. There are other ways to get your point across, but this certainly had shock value, so there is that. But anyway, that is the end of that article. I really don't have much more to add to that since, as I said, I do not live in the UK, so I can't say either way what's happening with that. I just thought that, There are plenty of Gary Lineker fans, definitely in Britain. So you might want to know more about what's happening with that. And as I said, this came out 3 days ago. I don't know if there's been an update. But if there is and I see it, I will most definitely do a video about it. So with that, I will stop rambling and I will see you guys in the next video.